Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Tim and Tim Show with Making Moves in Multifamily Live. Tim Vest, good to see you again, man. I'm not going to ask how you're doing today because I know what the response is going to be. So we're just going to get right into it.
There you go.
2024 year-end planning is going to be here before you know it. If you're syndicators like Tim and I are, the biggest thing that we have to deal with are presenting the deals that we bought for this year and giving the information to the CPA so that we can generate K1s. This is usually an undertaking that starts around this time. It's October 15th today, so it's your tax return planning filings. You have to get those submitted today. And the CPAs that do the K1s for us, they also are filing tax returns for everybody else. So, truth be told, full transparency, the CPAs that are filing your K1s, they don't typically look at your information until after this 10/15, 10/16 deadline to file personal tax returns. Because if you're like Tim and I in the real estate world, you file an extension every single year, and I don't ever pay attention to my taxes until about October 14th.
Which is yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got my
Yeah.
tax return last night at like 10 p.m. So I have to go through and review it now before I sign off on it. So that's been a priority for me today. But Tim, what are some other things that we or that you look at when we're talking about 2024 year-end planning? I mean, we kind of talked about the investor side of things with K1s and tax returns. What do you do on your personal side of things, to prepare yourself for year-end planning?
Me personally, man, I'm kind of looking at like where I'm looking back to what my goals were, right, in January
Mm,
and comparing that to how I've executed in the last 10 months. So and then I'm starting to carry that over into, what's the rest of my year look like? Do I need to adjust the rest of my year? Did I exceed? Did I fall short? And then quite frankly, hey, based on that, what's 2025 looking like? What's the next year looking like? So I'm starting to do that kind of stuff now. I'm starting to, look at, adjusting what my expectations are going forward, whether that's pulling back or accelerating. If let's say, hey, I want to be making $1 million a year by 2025. Well, if I hit that number in 2024, then hey, maybe I think about upping that, right? Like what is my 2025 number? Maybe it's 1.2, Um,
So that's really good because I one thing that I just picked up on that I just want to say out loud that it might be obvious to some people, but really what's happening is we're talking about growth and planning for 2025. What a lot of people, I think, and we had this discussion recently in our coaching group, Making Moves in Multifamily. We had this discussion recently was you, sorry, my phone. You have to, this is for growth side of, sorry, I had to get my retrain of thought right. So this is for the growth side of things and like what you want to accomplish next year. But let
yeah,
me be clear, when you own apartment complexes, it takes a very long time to do anything in the commercial real estate world. So take this don't interpret this as we're just now starting to think about things that we're going to do in 2025. We have been thinking about things that are going to happen in 2025 as early as far as I can remember, like April or May of this year. We're looking at what do we have
yeah.
to do in 2025 in terms of selling properties, refinancing properties, um, restructuring our property management company, do anything that is going to take a very long period of time. We're continually talking about and planning these types of things throughout the year. So that's like one kind of one side of the planning of the business is taking a forward like 9 month or 12-month look into like your debt and your expiring loans and all that kind of stuff to have an understanding of like what you need to accomplish next year. But all of this stuff that we're talking about right now, which is our 2024 year end planning, are all of the things that we want to accomplish next year. So big difference
Yeah.
between need to accomplish and want to accomplish.
Yeah, yeah, and then some, part of that too is like, hey, we thought we wanted to do these things in 24 and 25, but maybe as we got into them in 24, we realized, hey, probably need to pivot that idea or change that idea. And, like Tim said, we've been looking at 2025, much, much longer than, October of 24.
You were
And,
way, way longer. Like, if we
yeah,
just started to think about the things that we needed to accomplish in Q1 of 2025, now
yeah,
we'd be in really hot water.
yeah. So at this point, we're like, hey, in January, February, March, April of this year, we had this idea of what Q1 25 would look like. And now it's like, okay, now we're really close. And how did we progress towards that, over the course of the last 8 months? And now we're starting to look at like, okay, what do we need to alter? What do we need to pivot? What do we need to add, subtract, you name it.
Yeah. I mean, because you're constantly evaluating things that I would like to do, right? That's
Right.
that's what we do. And come December, we talk about things that we would like to accomplish in 2025. You get punched in the mouth and things change pretty quickly, right? But it's not to say that we still don't want to accomplish some of the things that we previously talked about. It just has to fit into the schedule a little differently. And things have grown, things have changed. We've pivoted, we've made business decisions, we've made personal decisions. Everything changes every single week, to be honest with you. So we just kind of take this time to reflect on the things that we said that we would like to accomplish. If we didn't accomplish them, why? Is this something that I want to cross off the list entirely because it's not really relevant anymore? Or is this something that this has got to come back on the docket to achieve next year because it's still something that I'm interested in doing? I just couldn't really fit it into my schedule this year.
Yeah. And then there's some of those that's like, hey, we didn't get to it this year. Do we still want to do this? Right. Like,
Yeah, do we still wanna do it? Right, yeah,
right.
does right. There's a lot of that because, like, man, Tim and I would get into a room, we start talking about things that we wanna accomplish. You should see some of the ideas we put down on paper. It's like, "Wow, this is aggressive." And sometimes we accomplish it, sometimes we don't, and that's okay because it's getting the creative juices thinking, planning, thinking about desire, like, what are we gonna push to grow? What are we gonna try to achieve? Whether it's personal or business or whatever, like, we're always constantly, like, trying to think about something different so that we're never stagnant. Because
Yeah.
I don't know, but I know me, but I definitely know you. Stagnant would not be good for either one of us.
No, stagnant's not good. But then there's the, like when we started our property management company, right? We're like, hey, we want to grow it to this size, right? Well, now I think we're probably about halfway there, and we've gone from one employee to 22 or something like that. I forgot exactly where we are at the
I
moment.
think we just hired like 6 people in the last 2 weeks, so I think we're closer to
Yeah.
30 employees now.
Yeah. So now here we, wow, are we? Now here we are, and it's like, wait a minute, do we want to go to 40 or 45 employees, right? Like,
I don't really know.
yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Let's we're close. We're kind of close to that number. So let's stop and think about this for a second.
We had our executive call yesterday, and Crystal came to us and she said, "All right, I got some bad news." And you know what my gut reaction was? All right, who quit? Who didn't
Who
show up to
quit?
work today? And that's the indicator of, do I really want to go from 30 employees to 60? I don't know if I want to deal with that every week.
By the way, I'll share this. Tim, did you hear that the employee that we thought was supposed to start yesterday who didn't show up actually showed up? Did you hear
Yes,
about
I
this?
did. Thank God. So what a weight lifted off my shoulders on that because I was
But
pretty bent out of shape about it. I'll be honest with you.
but my favorite was, so guys. Just long story short, she went to the wrong address. And apparently she got there and she was like, "Holy crap, this is not a good place."
Yeah.
And she just left. And I don't blame her, because when I found out where she went, I was like, "Oh, I know where that is." And
Oh, I didn't Google it, but Danielle had some choice opinions of, um, did she just decide that she didn't wanna work? Did she just didn't call anybody to confirm anything or whatever? And I was like,
yeah,
I'm not making
yeah,
excuses for her. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt, but let's just roll with this and see how it goes."
yeah. Now and here's the one benefit of the doubt I would get. I know where that is. I know where that street is. And if I drove up on that and I'm like, "Hey, this is what the job is," and then you show up at that, it'd be like, "Oh, these people flat out lied to me."
Mm-mm. Yeah, no.
So so
I'm gonna
anyway,
note
good
right out of
times.
here.
Good times.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so, like, use this time as an indicator to start to think about how you want to plan for next year. In Put it into two buckets: need to accomplish and want to accomplish, because they're two very different things. And accomplishing the need to accomplish things is still a very successful year. Accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, that would be an exceptional year. And I don't want people to downplay that they did not achieve their goals, their want goals, because even accomplishing your need goals is still such a good year where you're making progress, you're moving forward, right? You're keeping your feet moving, and it's constantly keeping your feet moving. Things are gonna happen. You're gonna catch a couple screwballs coming your way every single
Yeah.
year. Tim and I deal with who knows how many screwballs coming, curveballs, screwball, curveball. I don't know.
Either
In the
way,
it's MLB playoffs. I haven't watched it, but I saw that their viewership's up 20%. So we'll throw some baseball terms in there. But
because of the Mets. Go Mets.
go Mets. You know what Mets stands for, right?
It stands for beat the Dodgers' ass last night, is what that stands for.
My entire team sucks. That's what the Mets stand for. If you didn't know.
That's what we were saying at the beginning of the season for sure.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I just I'm super grateful for the opportunity to plan for next year because if you think about when you're in a W-2 job, maybe your planning for next year is I'm going to push as hard as I can to get that new raise or promotion. And what is really detrimental to me, the what pops into my mind when I say something like that out loud is you don't really determine your future success when you work for somebody else because
No.
they hold the keys to the kingdom and they have to decide what your raise is, what your promotion is, what your title is, what your terms look like, all this other kind of stuff. But when you become a business owner and entrepreneur like Tim and I are, the input dictates your output. So every year we have a conversation of what do we want to accomplish? What's the end goal look like for us? And what do we need to do to get there? And hey, if it's $1 million a year and we're getting close to it, we'll be like, hey, you know what? Let's just take this year to kind of enjoy it, right? Really kind of scale things back a bit, iron out some processes and systems and procedures. Or if you're not close to that $1 million a year, you're like, hey, what do we need to do? How hard do we need to grind to get here? Because your input dictates your output. So it's the faster you get to your output, the faster you can take it on Easy Street, which I don't think is a real thing. I don't believe I've ever seen a street sign called Easy Street, but I do know of people that quit their day jobs or that quit their their businesses and they can only be away from work for like a month or two and then they're bored. So I don't
Yeah.
think that place really exists.
And guys, sometimes it's a realization of let's talk about acquisition and operations for a second, right? Because this
Hmm.
is this is kind of an area where Tim and I landed this year. It's like, hey, we've been in heavy acquisition mode because we wanted to build a portfolio of this to create this for ourselves, right? Okay, so now we've done it, right? We've done it on paper, right? And because you guys, folks, you'll get there, right? You'll build something, and on paper, this is what it's worth. Well, now you got to go out and make that happen. You got to execute what's on paper and deliver it in order to actually make it worth that. So, you know, there's kind of this progress or progression, if you will, that it's like, hey, go out, acquire what you need to get to where you want to be, and then go make that a reality. And that's part of that conversation too. It's like, hey, we've had a very strong year. We've hit these goals. We've actually exceeded these goals in terms of acquisition. Now do we need to focus on delivering on exactly what we said we were going to do, right? And that's kind of the ebbs and flows that we're talking about here. It's like, hey, we're in October. What do we need to do, from this point forward, especially January 1st, 2025 forward, in order to hit our goals? And part of that goal is make sure that you hit those numbers that you projected when you acquired all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
So, like one of the things that we sat and talked with, a mentor of ours about was like, hey, here's where we are. Where do you think we need to go next? And that was a really good conversation to have because Tim and I had these ideas of, I think this is what we need to do. And then that mentor kind of confirmed, like, yeah, your head's in the right place. This is where your focus should be for the next 6 to 8 months, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of what we're starting to talk about now in October, and not really starting to talk about. We really started talking about this back in like July,
Yeah,
and
it's been a couple months.
yeah,
We're cleaning up some of the things that we had outstanding so that we can make space for the
right,
ability to kind of focus on some of these things. And I've already noticed myself being able to kind of carve out more time
yeah.
because of the things that we've been talking about and prioritize that, right? Where hey, I got 3 hours. I'm working on, how do I make my employees' jobs easier and more explainable, right? Like, how do you make it like step by step? How do you make everything numbered? How do you make it undeniable so that you know exactly what they're doing and they know exactly what they're doing? I try to pre-think all of the things that could be a problem for them and solve that problem before it gets there. Now, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything exactly, but it is a process of two-way street of providing value and feedback, value, feedback, value, feedback in order to fine tune, adjust, and get to where you have to go. But
Yeah.
the whole reason that we're doing that is because we've on paper acquired what we wanted to and then some, but the cash flow isn't as good as we had wanted it to be because we haven't delivered on the business plan yet. So the byproduct of that is if we focus on the business plan, all of our other income streams go up. The property values go up. The cash flow to a property management company goes up because it's on a percentage of collected income, right? Asset management fees go up. Exit fees, go up if the property value goes up. Refinance projections, like all of these things, come into play as you deliver on the business plan and you have the growth of these properties over time. You make more money by operationally efficient, making it operationally efficient, the portfolio that you have. You make more
Yeah.
money with what you have than by acquiring something else.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people have heard that before. I've heard that before, but I needed to hear it when I was in it and somebody
Yeah.
else was looking at my portfolio and saying, "Well, this is where you are and this is where I think you should focus." And we had talked about it and we were like, "Yeah, we kind of know we need to, but we don't know how to." So we talked with a mentor and they provided that level of guidance of like, "Here, this is what I think you guys should focus on so that we can get to that point." And you start looking at the benefits, you're like, "Wow, we have in what I would call an enterprise, right? I mean, we have LIHTC compliance, we have property management, we have construction, we have everything except for insurance, taxes, and debt. So if we focus on the underlying assets, which are the business drivers for all of those businesses, our income goes up across the board. So
Yeah.
I mean, you focus on one point and you're pulling three levers of growth, right? Property values, cash, asset management fees, property management fees, et cetera, and so forth. All of that goes up, right? So that's the highest and best use of our time is to focus on that one lever so that the other three values go up.
Yeah, because it's like what we talk about all the time. It's like on paper, this is what it will do, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about it, like on when you close on something, you say, "Hey, this is my performer. This is what I'm going to do, and this is the value I'm going to add." Well, that's on paper, right?
Hmm.
And always or the that's your equity, right? And it's like I like to say to people, can't eat equity, can't eat paper, right? So it's like, hey, I added $1 million to my net worth.
Hmm.
No, you didn't really.
Inequity.
On paper, in equity, on paper. So that's great. Now you got to go out and you got to make that $1 million a reality, right? So that's the business plan that Tim's talking about. And and guys, we see this all the time. We see people all the time close on something and then they fail to execute the business plan. And quite frankly, 2 years later, after owning something, they're in the same place they were 2 years before, right? Because they did not execute on the business plan. So that's kind of what Tim and I are talking about is like, how do we avoid that, right? How do you avoid falling into that trap? Well, it starts with talking about things in June and July, sitting down in October and saying, hey, here's the ideas we had. Yeah, you're right. We do need to go focus on this.
And
And
that's how the years fly by, right?
yeah,
Because you're thinking about 2025 and you're only through June of 2024.
and guys, one thing I would point out, this is not a pitch for making moves or anything like that. This is a pitch for I'm a true believer in getting people in your corner, mentors, coaches, whatever, to help you execute on these business plans that we're talking about. So if you're if you're looking for, hey, what am I going to do in January? What do I need to start doing in January? You need to be looking for that mentor, that coach now. Truly, you need to be looking for that mentor, that coach in June and July so that you're engaged with them in October so that you're ready to hit the ground running when January 1st happens, right? So,
Mhm.
guys, if you have not, if you're trying to go this alone, I would highly, highly recommend please go find somebody to put in your corner that's been there, done this, who has the experience of what you need to do. And because I mean, it truly does accelerate, guys. I mean, take it from
Mhm.
somebody who fell flat on his face in '08 and '09 and who is doing better now than he was then. The biggest difference for me, man, is just having people that I can call and talk to about what we should be doing.
Yep.
What do we need to do? Like Tim said, we went down and met with that mentor. We had these ideas of things we needed to do, And it turns out we were right for the most part. There were some tweaks that needed to be made. But, having that guy who's been there, done that, and has exceeded what we're trying to do, um, having him confirm those assumptions, that just gives you that extra level of confidence. And then, quite frankly, they start to help you go down the path of execution, right? It's like,
Hmm.
here's the
Agreed.
idea. Now, here's the four things you need to leave this room and go do right now to
Hmm.
make that idea a reality and execute on it. Right.
Yep. Yep. And
So,
that's exactly what we do, so we have people that do that for us, and then we do that for people that are part of our group, right? Because it's all a progression of where you are in this journey, in
yeah.
this life cycle of business and this cycle of growth, and like, achieving the things that you want to achieve. At some point the people that we coach will become coaches to other people, because those people then have something that other people are trying to acquire, and it just continues to create this ladder effect of people throwing down the rope for the next group of people that are willing to spend the time and money and invest in themselves to further
Yeah.
their growth, right? And you can go it on your own and you can do it yourself, or you can partner with somebody else and have somebody that's a mentor provide guidance and have somebody to use as a backboard to talk about these types of things. That's why planning is so important, because you can talk about, well, this is what I think I want, but I don't know how to get there, or I don't know what I should do first. And even if we don't know what it is, or even if our mentor doesn't know what it is, we can usually come to some kind of conclusion based on the conversations that we have. That's going to be the best output, because just like what we do in our Tuesday calls, where we're kind of like killing the deal when we're doing the underwriting calls, we're trying to kill the deal and find the holes in the arguments when you're trying to plan your structure, the structure and growth of your business. It's no different than acquiring a real estate deal that you're trying to poke holes in and see where your faults are. Same thing is true in business, because when you buy an apartment complex, you are buying a business.
Yeah. And completely agree. And speaking of those Tuesday calls, those Tuesday calls have matured and grown as well as Tim and
Hmm.
I have matured and grown. And some people I've had people come back and look at me and go, if you're learning as you go, why am I talking to you? It's like, because I'm like four steps beyond where you are right now, right? And then as I'm learning, that's coming directly back to you as an aha, hey guys, we saw this today, right? Because I can tell you this. I've had mentors before that I respect and I still use today that they've forgotten. They've
Hmm.
forgotten things they learned. And it's not until like I stumble and trip that they're like, oh man, yeah, I did that too. It's
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
just forgot about that.
Right.
But
Right.
Tim, our underwriting, like your underwriting, I know my underwriting, right? It matures as we go. We're learning things. Like I used to be like, hey, my capex is going to be this, and I was probably underestimated by 20%. Well, the most recent acquisitions we've done, I've been over, right? I've been
Yeah.
over by 25 to 30%,
I
right?
love that. It
But
makes
isn't
me
it
feel so
great?
good.
Isn't it great? We're able to go back to our
Oh,
investors and be like, man,
yes.
we thought we were going to deploy 400 grand in capex, but we did 250 and we're done, right?
Yeah, right. All right. I mean, it just makes the deal so much better. I mean, just provide,
Yeah,
shout out. We talk about him all the time. Chris Beatty, for those contingencies, man, he's, he would throw in a ton of
yeah,
contingency, but when you're underwriting and you're overestimating costs and underestimating income, it can only benefit you.
right. Yeah, yeah, completely agreed. And like when you get up there and you see, I need a new roof. I don't have a roofer with me, but I know a ballpark about what they cost.
Hmm.
And so I ballpark it and add 20%. And then when my roofer comes in 30% less than what I estimated, I'm like, sweet.
Bingo, done.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
makes the decision process that much easier and less stressful, because if you budget 150 and the bid comes in at 135, okay, do it. But
yeah,
if the bid comes in at 175 and you only got 150, you're like, God, where am I going to get $25,000 from? It just increases the stress. And
yeah.
when you slow down the decision making process, it ultimately delays your business plan and your business, delivering on the business plan. And that drives all stress and all problems, because hopefully 2 years later, because you'd sat on the decision to do the roof or not, made you 4 months behind in your business plan of getting the rents that you wanted to, and now you're not getting the refi proceeds that you want. And you can extrapolate that as long as you want to, but you can see how those decision making, the faster you're able to make a decision, the faster you can move. right? So making sure that you have those contingencies makes that decision making process easier.
But, the guys, the point of that whole thing is like, having people that are, kind of maybe 3 or 4 steps ahead of you as on your advisory board is really good because 'cause they're not so far ahead of where you want to be that they've forgotten some of those things, and then quite frankly, as they're uncovering some things in their own business, they're bringing them immediately back to you and saying, "Hey, Tim and I were working on this today, and this is what we saw," right? And it's not real time because you don't want it real time. You want to be ahead of the curve a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's a recent piece of information. It's recent piece of learnings that you're coming back and you're sharing with the group, and the group's learning, much faster, quite frankly. Um,
Yeah, and, one quick shout out, I wanna shout out, David Moody. He's, one of the
yeah,
first couple of guys that ended up joining our coaching group. He called me late last week and, super, super proud of him, but he told me he's leaving his W-2 job finally, and,
congrats, David.
I'm so happy for him, and, it just makes me so proud to see the people that trusted in us and invested in themselves to learn and further their education and make decisions to get them out of their day jobs are realizing those dreams. I mean, I know that when David came in, he said, "I wanna learn how to underwrite." A year later, he doesn't even join the underwriting calls because he knows exactly what I'm gonna ask. It's like, that's job well done on my part if he knows exactly what I'm gonna ask. And he's put that to work and he's made some money for himself. He's got a lot of opportunity in the pipeline and he's built the relationship capital necessary to leave his job. And now he's betting on himself and he's going all in. So congrats again, David Moody, for leaving his W-2 job and going full-time real estate professional. So
Yeah, yeah, man, David, huge shout out, man. Congrats, brother. Um, and hey, guess what? I think Tim and I have another person on deck that's not too far away that
not
we're
too
gonna
far. We got another one we're working on that he'll be out of
and
his
we're
day job pretty soon.
yeah, and we're literally putting him on it. We're working with him to put him on a path right now to do the exact same thing. So can't wait to share that one when it happens because it's gonna happen.
Oh, it's definitely gonna happen. We just don't know when exactly yet, but the path is there. The path is there, which is the most important part. So, um, yeah, but guys, really at the end of the day, this whole point about planning for year end and for next year and the year after that is, also thinking about where is your 5 and your 10-year goal gonna end you? What are you ultimately working for and why are you trying to do that? A lot of that you have to take into reflection because when things are hard and you're getting kicked in the teeth, it can be difficult to remember why you're doing the things that you're doing. And you got to go back to your 10-year goal of what you envision your life to be like and why you're doing the things that you want to be doing. I have this conversation recently with my brother, and he was asking, he was like, "Well, why are you doing all the things that you're doing?" And I told him, I was like, "Because when my daughter's old enough to be doing sports and doing things and whatever in school, I was like, I want to be her coach, her soccer team coach. I want to be at all her games. I want to be the dad that's able to go on the field trips. And I want to be able to do all those things. And I know if I sacrifice and I work hard now, that when she's 5, 10, 15 years old and doing all these things in school and time's flying by, I will have the ability to say, I don't really need more money right now. I need more time. And I'm going to take a step back so that I can spend time, I can be present, and I can do the things that are really important in life. And making money and providing value to people and coaching and all of that stuff is all valuable and it's all important, but nothing's more important than take care of yourself and your family and being present for them when you can.
And then just one thing to add to that, guys. Like, I think you all know Vitelli's a bit younger than I am. So what I would tell
A
you is
wee bit.
kudos. Yeah, we bet. So guys, like we always talk about like start younger, take it from old man Vest here is like Vitali's able to sit down and say to his plan, like, where do I want to be when my daughter is 5 years old, 8 years old, right?
Mhm.
I didn't pivot into doing what I'm doing until my daughter was already
12?
8 years old,
Oh, 8.
right?
Yeah.
So so, 8, 9 years old. So, I did a lot of like this, working my ass off, taking calls while the soccer field while I was walking around and stuff. I did a lot of that, when my daughter was at that stage. If I could go back and do something, I would have do it more like Vitali's doing it. So start the whole point of that is like the younger you start, the more options you have, the
Mhm.
more opportunities you have to say, I want to be there for my daughter when she's playing soccer at 5, right? I want to be
Mhm.
on the field. Hell, I maybe even want to coach, right? Like that kind of thing. So start younger, folks. Don't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? One of my mentors way back when I first got started in this was, maybe this is 100% is regurgitated information, but it's, delaying starting tomorrow doesn't help you on your timeline, right? Because the day you decide to make a change is the day your clock starts. And if everybody has a 2-year clock in order to, start their process to make money and, quit their day jobs or whatever, you got to start that process sooner than later. And it could be going to that meetup. It could be reading that first book. It could be talking to that investor or talking to that broker or underwriting the deal. Whatever that looks like, start the clock as soon as you can, because if you just delay it another week or another month, that's just another month that is going to take you before you realize what you're truthfully after. So, if you take away anything from this planning, is really look ahead 5, 10 years. What are you trying to accomplish, and start your clock today so that you could be the one on this shout out saying that we're proud of you for leaving your W-2 job.
Yep.
So
Jay, remember, just start today. Otherwise, you'll just be a year older when you do. So,
yeah, that's it. You just
uh,
be another year older. So,
yep.
all right, guys. Well,
All right,
thanks again.
guys.
Appreciate it. I hope to hopefully we inspired you, or you made you think about some things that maybe you want to plan for. Planning. If not, we'll be here again next Tuesday. We're faithfully here. So next Tuesday, 10 a.m. See you next time. Peace.
See you guys.